All right, ladies and gentlemen, so the fallout regarding Dragon Age The Veilguard has been massive. Bioware has felt all kinds of turmoil following them after the destruction of Dragon Age The Veilguard and the Edmonton studio that is currently right now being shuttered, and all the employees, for the most part, are being fired, with some of them being moved into other parts of EA. But with all that being said, it's officially known now that Bioware is down to less than 100 employees after the layoffs regarding Dragon Age The Veilguard. Less than 100 employees are going to be working on Mass Effect, the upcoming game. Now, I need you guys to keep in mind, Dragon Age The Veilguard was made by the Edmonton studio. Again, keep that in mind. And we also have the fact that BioWare has 4 studios attached to them. 4. And they just lost one entire studio for the most part. This has been a massive hit to BioWare, and it's such a massive hit that they are down to less than 100 employees. Last I heard from some sources, and I believe Grums had mentioned this as well, they are down to about 80 employees left over at BioWare. This is a massive hit, and we got to talk about it. So let's get into this article, guys, from That Park Place. But of course, before we do, if you are new here, just consider hitting that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it, and like the video to push us down into that YouTube algorithm. It says the previously reported BioWare layoffs have gutted the once legendary RPG studio, leaving it with fewer than 100 employees. I gotta say, I know people call BioWare a legendary studio, or once legendary, but let's be honest here. BioWare hasn't been legendary for almost 15 plus years now. BioWare has been riding the coattails of their initial Mass Effect games and their initial Dragon Age games, but for the most part, they haven't been relevant for a very long time. There are other studios out there that are worthy of your admiration, and BioWare is definitely not one of them, not anymore. Anyway, leaving it with less than a few hundred employees, according to a new report from Bloomberg. This is a stunning decline from more than 200 developers who worked on Dragon Age The Veilguard alone, and an even more dramatic fall from BioWare's peak, when the company operated across 3 studios and employed well over 400 people. Look at these numbers, guys. This is literal get woke, go broke. I'm not even kidding. 200 plus people worked on Dragon Age The Veilguard, and you mean to tell me that there is only 80 employees left, less than 100 employees left working at BioWare when they started at over 400 people? That is fucking nuts. I mean, how does anybody look at these numbers and not think, geez, I mean, what a drastic turn of events. This is a literal fallout, a nuclear level fallout at this point. They are hemorrhaging, and they are operating on a skeleton crew for all intents and purposes, and we're not going to see the next Mass Effect for a while. Even with 80 people, I gotta imagine it's going to take them quite a bit of time to get a game like Mass Effect onto people's hands. So this is going to be, we're not going to be talking about Mass Effect for a while. Electronic Arts' restructuring of BioWare was initially framed as a way to reallocate talent to other projects, particularly as Mass Effect remains in early production, despite being announced 5 years ago. However, as more details emerge, it's clear that this wasn't just a shift in resources. It was a culmination of years of mismanagement and decline, leading to a near total collapse of BioWare as a development powerhouse. Now, they did announce Mass Effect 5 years ago, and I want you guys to keep in mind that they've been developing a super skeleton crew over at Mass Effect for those 5 years. So they've barely gotten anything done at Mass Effect. They might have some concept art, they might have the initial stages, but for the most part, Mass Effect is very little right now. They're not going to release this game probably for another 4 to 5 years, I gotta imagine, at best, which means that we are going to have yet again another BioWare game taking 10 plus years to develop. I mean, it's insane, bro. We're talking a decade to develop one video game. They did it once, and now they're going to do it again. It's insane. Anyway, so at its height, BioWare was one of the most respected RPG studios in the world, which is true, delivering genre-defining experiences with Mass Effect, Dragon Age, and Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. You know what's crazy? A lot of people tend to forget Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic and how amazing that game was, because when people think of BioWare, they don't necessarily think of that game initially. They think of Mass Effect and Dragon Age, especially Mass Effect. But Star Wars and Knights of the Old Republic is definitely one of the best RPGs ever made, in my opinion, and you definitely should be playing it if you haven't played it. But under EA's leadership, the studio has been in a steady decline for the past decade, with each new project plagued by creative confusion, studio mismanagement, and an increasing emphasis on live service monetization over strong storytelling. Now, here's the biggest problem that I have, and the biggest worry that I have regarding the new Mass Effect, aside from the fact of whether or not it's going to be ultra woke like Veilguard Veilguard was, which I doubt. Considering the fallout that BioWare has experienced and considering they're on their last leg, I highly doubt they're going to make it ultra woke by today's standards anyway. But my biggest fear for Mass Effect is they're going to try to do what they did with Dragon Age to Mass Effect. They failed at making Dragon Age to Veilguard a live service game because that was the initial concept. That was the initial idea. If you guys remember some of the gameplay from Dragon Age Dreadwolf, you'll realize that a lot of it had to do over the live service model. And then they eventually end up scrapping it all and turning it into a single player game, which is what it should have been from the first point. I think that they're going to try again with Mass Effect because I'm viewing it from EA's eyes, right? And at this point, EA is subsidizing BioWare in the hopes that Mass Effect could be a big hit and hopefully they could get a strong name under their belt, which is the entire reason why they purchased BioWare to begin with. They wanted to be able to have that legendary studio under EA's flag. You know what I mean? So I genuinely believe that they are going to try to make Mass Effect some sort of live service game, and that's a big fear of mine. It may not be a live service game in the sense of like, let's say Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, but I feel like it's going to be a live service game in the sense of they're going to try to monetize maybe skins or different aspects of the single player game will be slowed down to then encourage you to buy either time or some sort of points or something like that, right? To encourage you to try to speed up progress in the game or something like that. I think they're going to 100% overly monetize this game because they need to, right? BioWare is on its last leg. If Mass Effect 4 or 5, whatever this is going to be called, if Mass Effect, the next upcoming game, does not succeed, BioWare is dead. And even if the game does succeed, I genuinely believe BioWare is dead. I don't understand how BioWare is going to live past the upcoming Mass Effect over a year or so. I just don't believe it. The game is just, there's too much riding on this game, essentially, is what I'm saying. It's the Assassin's Creed Shadows for BioWare, where Ubisoft is dead no matter what happens with Assassin's Creed Shadows. It's the same thing that's happening here. So it says, while EA's latest restructuring announcement tried to downplay the BioWare layoffs, the numbers speak for themselves. More than half of the studio has been wiped out since work began on the Veilguard, and the final blow came after the game's disastrous performance. EA had originally planned to loan developers to other teams while Mass Effect was still in early production. But once it became clear that Veilguard had missed its sales targets by nearly 50%, these relocations became permanent, with over 20 additional staff members laid off outright. So again, guys, we have a little bit of a history here. Let me just show you this timeline. It says 2010, BioWare Montreal was established, eventually leading development on Mass Effect Andromeda with a team of over 300 people. 2014, BioWare Austin had between 80 and 150 developers working on Shadow Realms, a game that was later canceled. 2017, reports suggested 320 employees were working at BioWare Edmonton, the studio's original flagship location. And then in 2019, BioWare had a combined workforce of around 400, 500 employees spanning Edmonton, Austin, and Montreal. So again, ladies and gentlemen, this is a massive, massive hit to BioWare. They are operating on a skeleton crew, and whether or not this skeleton crew can successfully create a new Mass Effect game is going to be seen. But as of right now, I'm holding all caution right now. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you did enjoy it. If you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video, comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.